Morning all, I know I'm still in my pyjamas, but it's the school holidays and my family are all asleep and it's less noisy if I just fall out of bed in my pyjamas, come downstairs and get the work done. I'm in my studio, who's to judge? And I feel then I'm sort of holiday-ish if I'm not dressed yet. Anyway, I've also got a commission to make a corsage for the mother of the groom for a wedding that's happening tomorrow. And the corsage is going to be pinned to a dark green silk bag. So I'm going to make something really pretty and I thought you might like to come along too. And if you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Please do subscribe, press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks I give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. And clubbers, we're going to have an extra live at 5 this Thursday, but I'll tell you more about that later. So what have I got? Well, I went up the field yesterday evening and had a little bit of a rave up and cut. Obviously, I'm not going to use all of this in my corsage, but as is often the case, this is why one generally doesn't do small commissions, because one always does a great deal more work than is required for the commission. But equally, it's a pleasure, isn't it, when somebody rings you up and asks you to do something special for a special day for them. So I massively overcut for a corsage, but I'll just take you through what I've chosen. Bearing in mind, this material has got to be pinned to a handbag and stay on the handbag all day looking relatively fresh. So I'm going to take it all out and I'm going to show you what I've chosen. We will not use all of this, but I've got plenty to choose from and to let the creative juices flowing. I think that's always helpful. If you're a home florist or somebody who's learning to play around with flowers a bit, then do let yourself just cut what tickles your fancy and then have a look at what you're working with. This has all been in water overnight, so it's all in fairly good. It's been well hydrated. If I lay it down like this, you'll see my hair's falling down. You see, I haven't got up yet. It's too early in the morning. So I have got rose buds, and these are the only pieces I'm going to wire, but they are going to support everything else. So I've got some rose buds. You can see with this one, the calyx is beginning to open. And so this rose may pop for my lovely lady, but equally it's quite nice structure as it is. So I don't mind if it stays open, stays closed or opens up. And all of the other roses that I've cut are either tiny bit further on, not fully open. These are garden roses. They've got nothing. They've not been treated with any chemicals. I don't want them to be lifeless. I'm not making a work of art that's going to stay the same forever. I'm making a piece of ephemeral art which will be in the bin by the end of the day. So that's very pretty, I think. Again, another rose, just the calyx, just open. And we talked, the client and I had a lovely chat, and she said greens, whites, and a little bit of pink. So the roses, I've not cut hundreds of the same. I've just cut the roses that are just ready for this particular piece of work. So none of them are the same. That's Desdemona. This is Long Lost Label, and I don't know what she's called. Peachy. Bonica, the workhorse of the rose garden. And no idea. It's hard to tell when she's so tight. She's rather pale to be. Interestingly, well, maybe niche interest, but if I were to say this was a white rose and I'd look at that leaf, I'd know from that leaf it's not Vanessa Bell, but it's the wrong shaped bud to be Claire Austin, so I'm not sure who it is. Anyway, that's a nice little mix of roses to go on the corsage. And then nice pale pink achillea, white nigella, very pretty verbena, white verbena, and you can see how it's beginning to set seed, but it's a really attractive green and, you know, if you're going for a green and white, that's a nice mix. Quite ripe, minute, these are tiny hydrangea heads, and this is paniculata limelight, and these are side shoots. You know, the big heavy heads are sort of this big at this stage, but they're quite ripe, so they will last well. They need to be ripe. Love, and will stand very nicely. This is sanguisorba, nice pink. Bit more green, Alchemilla mollis, which has had a really great season, and there's hardly any of it left, but I think that's quite good against a dark green bag. I think that'll be quite striking, look, against colour. Limonium. This is a brilliant, quite easy to grow from seed, and it gets frothier and more. My variety gets frothier and more purple, but I've cut it at this stage, and it's sort of like instant dried flower. I cut the rest of it. It's going to come in here and get dried off and used for Christmas, but it's really pretty in the summer as a bit of froth. Looking at these now, I can tell you I will not use them. That's a perennial helichrysum. I never use it. I really ought to get rid of it. I never use it. A bit of sedum. I bet I don't use that either. It's too heavy and flat-headed. This I love, and if the client and I knew each other better, I would definitely use it. But it's a bit yellow, I think, actually, for this project. It is you see, my brain has gone. It is a silver-leafed, perennial, herby flavoured person that if you put between your sheets, it will keep the moth out. And when I remember, I'll tell you what it's called, but I can tell you I'm not going to use that either. I'm going to put the ones I know I'm not going to use back in the water. Right, got a bit more of this, a bit more of that. Now, this is a lovely leaf. It is Physocarpus darts gold, and you might think, oh, a bit floppy, but this leaf is off a stem which has flowered, and you can see there are the old flower heads turning into berries. It makes it much stronger and less floppy. It's not fresh green growth. This has been around now since May, and so I'm going to use it as a background for the whole mix. It's going to be, imagine what's going to go flat against the handbag. This is going to be the back. Another rose. I've got a little beetle. Panicking beetle going across. Two purple. That's Allium spherocephalum. Not going to have you. Love a bit of stripy grass. And you can see this is almost dry, so this will be great again for the background, but we don't want to be too big. It's very easy for me to get rather large. So this is where I have to control myself. Another lovely little bit of the hydrangea, and look, just the beginning to pink up a tiny little bit, which is a way of telling that it's quite ripe. I think nice variegated Euonymus japonica. Boring. Bin. I only need 1, this is it, yes. So there we have that. One stunning wild carrot seed head just developing. Isn't that gorgeous? It's possible it won't go in because it might be a bit big, but we'll see. I'll keep it to one side. Ami Majus. Now, you might think that Ami Majus is a bit floppy for this work, but this is quite a mature plant, and you get to a stage with Ami Majus where you want to cut it just before it starts showing any sign of age. But actually, this would dry quite happily. You could just put it in a glass, and it would just stand there. You've got to be a little bit careful that it's not shedding too much, especially against a dark green bag. So give it a shake if you're going to use it. We may or may not use it. I'm looking at the mix, and I think we'll see whether that comes together. And last but not least, this is a gorgeous pink Chinese forget-me-not. And again, you might think, but that's not going to last out of water. Well, once it's beginning to set seed like this, actually it does last really, really nicely. These stems are really strong. So that might be a nice bit of detail. Bit more achillea, somehow we have a little bit more achillea over here. And there is my mix. I'll show you a little flat lay. Let's get all what's the word? Instagram about this. This could be your 30 stem challenge for this weekend. Is go outside and make yourself a really stunning corsage. There we are. All the pieces laid out, ready. As you can see, way too much. I do not need anything like as much, but we'll see. I'll probably end up with maybe 10 stems, which will be plenty. Now I'm going to wire only the roses, and the reason I'm going to wire them is they're quite heavy. If I let them lean, you'll see that they want to fall over, and under pressure these are quite brittle, and I don't want to snap off. So I'm going to wire them together, and unless the leaves are right up at the top, I'm going to take the leaves off. Any spare little extra stem, you see where there was another flower there, here. I'll take that off. And these two are going to be wired together to make one, okay? And when I'm wiring, I'm not a keen wirer. I much prefer to be able to make things that can then go straight on the compost heap. But in this case, I'm going to wire. So very, very thin stub wire. If you talk to your florist supplies specialist, of which there are a great many online, ask for the lightest stub wire that you can get. Ring them up and ask them. Don't order it online unless you know what you're looking for, because it's very hard to tell what the lightest is. Ring up and say, I want the finest stub wire that you do. So it'll be short lengths, and they'll sell you a kilo of it, which is honestly enough to last you the rest of your life, so long as you keep it somewhere very dry, because it rusts. So with roses, when they're in bud like this, I will take the wire and I will pierce the neck of the rose, okay? I will then take the piece that I've pierced the neck of the rose with and just wind that down the stem. Can you see? There. And I'm going to leave it like that for the moment until I need it. So I'm going to just wire the rest of them. You don't have to watch me do it all. And then we'll come back to more. So here they are all wired individually, separately like this. And I've taken off quite a lot of the side shoots. I just want the roses to be at their best. And I've got 5 stems of roses there, which is almost enough to make a corsage on its own. But my style that I'm known for is a sort of hairy, more herbaceous border look than just one rose. I want something sort of gentler and prettier. So if this is going to be the back, I'm actually going to take a bit off this because I'm conscious of the size. I don't want it to be too big for the handbag that it's going to be on. So that's, if you think about it, the handbag's about 8 inches long and I think 6 inches wide. So, you know, it's got to sit in the middle of it and look lovely. It doesn't need to fight with it or overwhelm it. The lady's got to be able to carry the handbag or however it's going to be transported. So I'm going to build up my corsage. This is the back. And I'm going to be just very gentle with it. I'm going to cut everything. Quite often things are going to get cut up and smaller parts of them be used. And this is where it's difficult doing it backwards. But imagine I'm making a mini posy. It's really, really important that you keep all your stems clean because otherwise it'll look untidy. So there is a little bit of the limonium. Here comes the first of the roses. And because I've got the wire, I'm going to wire the rose very gently against the leaf at the back. And it's very, very important that you don't squash the leaves. I need the leaves to cover up my workings. And this will just protect the rosebud from snapping off during the day. I'm not doing a heavy job here. It's much easier to do it facing me. There, it's just held in, and now the long wire is hanging down. I'm not binding it yet because I've got lots of roses. And so now I'm going to have one of these lovely stems of verbena. And I tuck that in. I'm making sure that my stems, it's like a miniature hand tie. So I'm going to get a little twist. That'll do 2 things. A, it'll look tidy, but B, it'll mean that when I've finished, I can put the whole into this little test tube of water, which will keep it fresh until the wedding tomorrow. Right, in goes this little pink one. And what you can do is look at what you're doing. If I come around, you can see. Here's your posy, and you can see how it's going to be flat against something. So you can tuck where there is a hole or a space, tuck your roses in. Like that. Oh. Little bit of Chinese forget-me-not tucked in the back. Love this nigella. Coming along. gorgeous sanguisorba. I'm going to have that sticking up at the back, a little extra flourish, like a, imagine this is a, so imagine it's going, I'll show you against a piece of fabric afterwards, but it's beginning to have a really nice shape. Little bit of Alchemilla mollis. Tucked in the side here. I think we will have the wild carrot coming along. No, I don't like it. It's too heavy. I'm going to put it at the back, and if I don't like it afterwards, I can take it off. And now I can put the next rows in front of the Alchemilla. And one more again. So they're together. Look at that, it's coming together really nicely. I'm not going to use this one. It's sort of pointless. I'm filming. But look at the grass. Tuck the grass at the back. Is it too much? It's too much. Cut it down. Little flourish. Oh, I do like my job. There. And you can see how I really have cut plenty. I don't need any more, and actually I'm kind of done. Do we need the shall we have the hydrangea? Oh yes. It may be good if you watch this on a television rather than on a phone. You may see a bit more. So I'm just tucking all these wires out of the way. And the hydrangea can kind of cup them. It's like a collar. And I think I'd say that was plenty for a handbag. Otherwise it's too big and too heavy and it'll fall off. So I've got not much in the way of wire. I've got a couple of wires here, and I'm going to pull them all together and just I'm making a small fat base, if you like, a bunch of stems, and the wire will hold it all in. And if you've got too long, you can go back up. And obviously I'm not leaving it so you see nothing but the wire, but that's kind of sweet, isn't it, for a handbag? If you imagine it pinned on the bag like that. Very attractive. So, as I said, way too much material. I'll make a posy for Granny afterwards. Anyway, that is going to hang nicely be pinned very prettily on the handbag. Either way, it's going to look good. So I'm going to snip the stems off. I'm not cutting them really short because, beg your pardon, it's kind of part of the story that the stems are there. This is a miniature posy. I'm just going to tuck it in here, and I need to get some raffia, and I'll show you how I bind it. So I've got myself some nice raffia. regular viewers of my channel will know that I'm a keen raffia. I love my raffia. If you're binding any kind of buttonhole corsage type thing, it's worth having quite a fat piece of raffia because it's nice and flat. So what I'm doing is I am holding the raffia against the stem by my thumb, okay? And I'm then going to bind it round. So I've got my long piece of raffia coming down here. And I'm going to pull it really tight, nice and tight. Because I don't want it to be too fat. But I'm covering up the wire. And I'm pulling the stems into a bunch. So they're really tucked away. Make sure that the wire is covered up. I have no idea what you can see because I can't see because I'm looking at what I'm doing. But it's a very tidy way of just finishing it off. It's very attractive, I think. And when I get to the end, because I've got the piece hanging down here, I can then tie a little knot. You want to tie quite a tight knot so that, because otherwise it's lumpy. You don't want anything to be lumpy. And if you can tie it at the back, that's even better. Snip off the stems. And if I were wearing it, if you're wearing a corsage, ladies should wear a corsage upside down on the right, because the gentlemen will wear their corsage the right way up, their buttonhole the right way up on the left, which means that when you're dancing, your flowers won't fight with each other, they won't get tangled up. There you go. Because you dance close on this side and looser on this side, and so the flowers have got space. That's the tradition. Anyway, this is going on a handbag. I am going to pin, I'm going to pop it in its little phial of water. And there is a lovely corsage for a handbag. I'm going to put the pins, enormous heavy pins. Woo. But it's an enormous heavy corsage. This is much too heavy for a normal size pin. So I've got super duper pearl tipped pins. And I'm going to tuck them in the back. No. There we are. Tuck them in the back, and then the client tomorrow, when it's time for the wedding, has got good strong attachments for her corsage. And you can imagine on a handbag that's going to be really, really pretty. The handbag will flatten it a bit. So it will push the flowers forward. The roses will very likely ping open. I think that's very nice. Though I say it myself. And she's going to collect it like that. I'm going to put a label with some instructions. And there it is. My dirty old work surface isn't ideal, but imagine my dirty old work surface is the handbag. and the handbag is 8 inches by 6. So I think it's just about going to fit, but any bigger and it wouldn't fit. But I think that's rather attractive myself. And now I'm dressed and the sun's out, so time to get on. But I hope you've enjoyed the clip, and I'll see you very soon. Clubbers, live at 5 on Thursday, 27th of July, 5 o'clock BST, and the subject is keeping your mojo going. Ping me your questions, and I'll see you there.